It was one of those warm summer afternoons when the sun hangs lazily in the sky, making the streets glow with soft golden light. The neighborhood was peaceful, full of life but never too busy. Kids were laughing, dogs barked in distant yards, and the faint hum of lawnmowers blended with birds singing. On the corner of that quiet street, a little girl stood proudly beside a handmade lemonade stand. She couldn't have been more than 8 or 9. Her hair tied up with a bright ribbon and her cheeks flushed with excitement. She had been saving up for this day all week, waiting for the sun to shine just right so she could finally open her stand. With her father's help the night before, she had painted a small wooden sign that said, "Fresh lemonade, 50 cents. Her table was covered with a yellow cloth. A big glass jar full of ice sat in the center, and a little jar for coins rested by her elbow. She poured each cup with care, smiling at anyone who walked by, calling out cheerful greetings to the few people passing. Across the street, a few men on motorcycles rumbled down the road, their engines echoing through the quiet neighborhood. They weren't bad men or reckless riders, just a group of friends coming back from a long weekend ride. One of them, a tall man with a worn leather jacket, had been part of this group for years. He rode carefully, always keeping his distance and never speeding through residential areas. But that day, fate had something else in mind. The sun's glare was strong, bouncing off car windows and blinding him for a brief second. At that very moment, a patch of loose gravel lay scattered across the bend near the lemonade stand. His front tire hit it just as he was turning. The bike wobbled violently, the back wheel slid sideways, and before he could regain balance, the motorcycle spun out of control. In an instant, the bike veered off the road, heading straight toward the little stand. A few neighbors screamed. The sound of screeching tires filled the air, followed by the sharp crack of wood as the stand shattered under the weight of the bike. Cups of lemonade went flying, ice scattering across the pavement. The little girl fell to the ground, her leg twisted awkwardly, her frightened eyes filling with tears. The biker, thrown from his seat, rolled onto the grass, his helmet clattering beside him. For a moment, everything went silent except for the faint hiss of the bike's engine and the girl's soft sobs. People rushed out of their houses. A woman dropped her groceries and ran forward, shouting for help. A man on his porch called emergency services. The biker, shaken and bleeding from his arm, scrambled to his feet. His voice trembled as he stumbled toward the girl, his hands shaking. "I'm so sorry." "Oh no, I'm so sorry," he kept saying, his face pale with guilt. The girl's father ran from the other side of the street, his heart racing as he saw his daughter lying there. He dropped to his knees beside her, holding her hand, trying to calm her down, though his own voice was shaking. "It's okay, honey. You're going to be okay." He looked at her leg. It was swollen and bruised badly. He could feel panic rise in his chest, but he tried to stay strong for her. The biker looked helpless. He couldn't stop staring at what had just happened. One moment he was cruising home, and the next he'd hurt an innocent child. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he tried to explain, but words wouldn't come out. Just then, a black SUV that had been parked near the corner suddenly opened its doors. 2 men stepped out, both instantly recognizable even from a distance. It was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and John Cena. They had been in the area filming a small charity segment for a children's hospital. They'd stopped for a short break, and now they were witnessing the chaos unfold right before their eyes. Without a second thought, The Rock ran straight toward the crowd. Cena was right behind him. There were no cameras, no spotlight, just 2 men reacting like any decent human being would. The Rock knelt beside the girl, his large frame blocking the harsh sunlight as he checked if she was conscious. "Hey there, sweetheart," he said softly, his voice calm but firm. "You're safe now. We're right here, okay?" The girl looked up, confused and in pain, but she nodded weakly. Her breathing was uneven and her little hands trembled. The Rock quickly glanced at her leg and then at her father. "She's hurt, but she's awake. That's a good sign. We just need to keep her still." Cena took out his phone and called for help, giving clear directions to the emergency dispatcher. Then he turned to the crowd, raising his voice, asking people to give them space. "Please, everyone, step back and let her breathe. She needs air." His tone wasn't angry, just firm enough to calm the chaos. People obeyed. The biker was sitting on the curb now, shaking uncontrollably, muttering apologies under his breath. Cena noticed him and walked over, putting a hand on his shoulder. "Hey, don't run," he said gently. "Stay right here. Help is on the way. She's going to make it." The man nodded, tears streaking down his dusty face. I didn't mean to. I swear I didn't mean to. Cena gave him a small nod. I know accidents happen. Right now, we just need to make sure she's okay. The Rock kept talking to the girl, asking her about her name, her favorite flavor of lemonade, anything to keep her distracted. She even managed a small smile when he said, I think you make the best lemonade in this whole neighborhood. I might need a cup when you're back in business. Time felt like it had stopped. The heat, the sound of distant traffic, the murmuring crowd, it all blurred together. The only thing that mattered was that small child lying there, surrounded by strangers who suddenly felt like family. A few minutes later, faint sirens grew louder. Cena ran toward the main road, waving at cars to make way for the ambulance. Drivers immediately pulled over as he directed the vehicle in, his commanding presence impossible to ignore. The Rock carefully lifted the girl into his arms, carrying her away from the broken stand to a clear space under a shady tree. Her father followed close, holding her little stuffed toy that had fallen during the crash. When the paramedics arrived, they quickly examined her leg and prepared a stretcher. The Rock stayed by her side until they secured her safely. Cena came back, sweating from clearing the road, and handed a bottle of water to the biker, who still couldn't stop crying. Drink some, Cena said quietly. You need to stay steady. As they loaded the girl into the ambulance, her father looked at both men, speechless. He wanted to thank them but couldn't find the words. The Rock just smiled and patted his shoulder. She's strong. She's going to be fine. Cena added, We'll check on her later. Don't worry, you're not alone. The ambulance drove away, its siren echoing down the street. Slowly, the crowd began to disperse. People were whispering, some still stunned by what they had just witnessed. Not only the accident, but the way those two men had stepped in like ordinary heroes. The biker sat quietly, his head in his hands. The Rock walked over to him and crouched down. Listen, he said, his tone steady but kind. You made a mistake, but you did the right thing by staying here. What matters now is that you help however you can. Don't run from this. The man nodded slowly, still unable to meet his eyes. Cena put a hand on the Rock's shoulder. Let's make sure he's okay too. He looked shaken. The Rock agreed, and they both helped the man to his feet, guiding him to sit on the curb where he could breathe. They stayed until the police took his statement and the road was cleared. When everything was finally calm again, the Rock and Cena quietly returned to their SUV. They didn't tell anyone who they were helping. They didn't take pictures or wait for the media. To them, it wasn't about fame. It was about doing the right thing when it mattered. As the SUV drove away, the broken lemonade stand still lay scattered on the side of the road, cups overturned. The little sign bent but still readable, fresh lemonade, 50 cents. The evening sun cast long shadows across the pavement, and the faint smell of lemons still lingered in the air. That simple moment, born from chaos, would soon become a story that spread far beyond that small neighborhood. A story not just about a terrible accident, but about kindness, courage, and how two strangers became real-life heroes when it mattered the most. The sirens had faded into the distance, but the sound still echoed in everyone's mind. The quiet street looked different now. The broken lemonade stand had been cleared away, and the neighbors slowly returned to their homes, still shaken by what they had just seen. The biker sat alone on the curb for a long time after everyone left, his helmet resting on his knees. He couldn't stop seeing the little girl's frightened face. Every time he blinked, the moment replayed again and again. The skid, the crash, her small cry. He buried his face in his hands and took a shaky breath. The Rock and John Cena had stayed until the ambulance was gone. But even after leaving, their minds were still on that little girl. Inside the SUV, the silence was heavy. The driver didn't say a word. Cena kept staring out the window while the Rock leaned back, lost in thought. After a while, Cena broke the silence. You think she'll be okay? He asked quietly. She's strong, the Rock said, his voice low but certain. Kids are tougher than we think. He paused and added, but I can't get that father's face out of my head. You could see the fear in his eyes. Yeah, Cena said softly. That look stays with you. Neither of them had planned to be heroes that day. They were just two men on a break, but when something like that happens in front of you, there's no thinking, it's pure instinct. Still, both felt like they couldn't just leave it there. The next morning, they made a few calls through their team and quietly found out where the girl had been taken. They learned that she had undergone a minor surgery on her leg but was awake and recovering well. Hearing that brought them both relief. But The Rock said what they were both thinking. We should visit her. No cameras, no press. Just us. Cena nodded immediately. Later that afternoon, they arrived at the hospital dressed simply, caps pulled low so they wouldn't attract attention. They brought along a bouquet of sunflowers, a box of coloring pencils, and a small stuffed bear. When they reached her room, her father was sitting by her bed, reading her a story. The girl's leg was wrapped in a cast, but she smiled the moment she saw them. "Hey there," The Rock said, giving a small wave as he stepped inside. "I told you we'd check on you, didn't I?" The girl's eyes lit up. "You came?" she said, her voice soft but full of surprise. "We had to make sure our favorite lemonade maker was doing okay," Cena said, grinning as he placed the gifts on the table. Her father stood up, clearly emotional. "I don't even know how to thank you both," he said. "You didn't have to come." "We wanted to," The Rock replied gently. "How's she feeling?" "She's a fighter," the father said proudly. "Doctors say she'll recover completely in a few weeks." "That's what I like to hear," Cena said with a smile. He turned to the girl and added, "You scared all of us for a bit, but I guess you like making big entrances, huh?" The girl giggled, the sound filling the room with warmth. For a moment, it didn't feel like a hospital anymore. The Rock pulled a chair close to her bed. "You know," he said, "when I was your age, I used to sell cookies door to door. Didn't make much money, but I learned that smiles are the best part of business." She looked curious. "Did people buy from you?" He chuckled. "Only when my mom bought them. But that's okay because I learned something important. You keep trying no matter what." Her father listened quietly, a small smile forming on his face. The biker had been allowed to visit earlier that morning, and though it had been awkward at first, the girl had told him she forgave him. That moment had broken him completely, and he'd left the hospital promising to help however he could. When Cena heard that, he nodded. "That man didn't mean for this to happen," he said gently. "Sometimes good people make bad mistakes. The best thing we can do is forgive and move forward." The girl looked thoughtful.
"He said sorry a lot," she murmured. "I bet he did," Cena said.
"And you know what? You forgiving him probably helped him more than you'll ever know." The Rock leaned in and said softly, "That's what makes you special. Not everyone can forgive that easily." They stayed for almost an hour, telling her funny stories from their travels, making her laugh until her cheeks turned red. Before leaving, The Rock bent down and whispered, "When you get back to that lemonade stand, I'll be your first customer." "Deal?" "Deal," she said, shaking his hand with a smile. As they walked out, her father followed them into the hallway. He looked tired but relieved. "You don't know how much this means to us," he said quietly. "You didn't just help her, you helped all of us." The Rock placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have a brave kid," he said. "Keep her surrounded by love. That's all she needs right now," Cena added. "And don't forget to take care of yourself too. Parents always forget that part." When they left the hospital, both men felt lighter. It wasn't about being famous that day. It was about being human. About showing up when it mattered. Later that night, as the sun dipped below the horizon, The Rock sat on his porch thinking about the girl. He couldn't help but admire how calm she'd been despite everything. He turned to Cena, who was sitting nearby. "You know, it's crazy how a small kid can teach us something so big," he said. Cena nodded slowly. "Yeah," he said. "She forgave that biker without hesitation. That kind of heart, it's rare." "I think we should check in again next week," The Rock said. "Maybe see if the community needs help rebuilding that stand." "I was thinking the same thing," Cena replied. "It's not just about fixing the stand, it's about helping everyone heal." And that's exactly what they did. The following weekend, they returned to the same neighborhood. The broken pieces of the lemonade stand had been cleared, but the space looked empty without it. A few of the neighbors were already planning to rebuild it for the girl as a surprise. When they saw The Rock and Cena arrive, people started gathering, whispering in disbelief. One of the neighbors, a kind woman from across the street, said, "We didn't expect you two to come back." The Rock smiled. "Well, we made a promise, and we always keep our promises." With that, they rolled up their sleeves and got to work. Someone brought wood, another brought paint. And soon the quiet corner turned into a small construction site filled with laughter and teamwork. Cena helped hammer the base together while The Rock sanded down the rough edges. Even the kids in the neighborhood joined in, handing nails and brushes. The biker came too. He hesitated at first, unsure if he should even be there, but when the girl's father saw him, he walked over and shook his hand. "We forgive you," he said simply. "Now let's make something good out of this." The biker's eyes filled with tears, but he nodded and joined the others. He worked quietly, fixing what he could, determined to do something right this time. By late afternoon, the new lemonade stand stood taller and stronger than before. They painted it bright yellow again, and this time they added a small sign at the bottom that said, "Stronger than yesterday." When the girl finally arrived in a wheelchair, her eyes widened in surprise. The crowd clapped and cheered as she looked at her brand new stand. Tears filled her eyes as The Rock handed her the first glass of lemonade. "Best in town," he said proudly, taking a sip. Cena handed her a few coins with a grin. "And that's the first official sale of the new stand," he said. The biker came forward, holding a small envelope. "This is to help with her medical bills," he said quietly. "I know it's not much, but it's from the heart." The father took it with gratitude. "Thank you," he said softly. "You don't have to carry this alone anymore." Everyone smiled, the air filled with laughter and the sound of children playing again. For a moment it felt like the accident had never happened. What had begun as a moment of fear had turned into something beautiful, a community united, strangers becoming friends, and two men reminding everyone what compassion truly looked like. As the sun began to set, the girl looked up at The Rock and Cena and said, "You kept your promise." They both smiled. The Rock patted her shoulder and said, "Always." And as they walked back toward their car, the girl's laughter followed them down the street, mixing with the sound of the summer breeze. The lemonade stand glowed in the golden light, standing as a quiet reminder that even from pain, something good can grow if people care enough to make it happen. Weeks turned into months, and the warm summer faded into early autumn. The lemonade stand, once a small table by the corner, had now become a small landmark in the neighborhood. People who had never even met the girl before now came just to see her smile, buy a cup of lemonade, and maybe hear the story that had touched so many hearts. Her leg had healed completely by now. She could walk and even run again, though her father still told her to be careful, but she wasn't scared anymore. Every time she saw her yellow stand, she was reminded that even when something bad happens, kindness can turn it into something good. The Rock and John Cena had gone back to their work, traveling from city to city for events and projects, but they never forgot about her. They kept in touch quietly through her father, sometimes sending short videos saying things like, "Keep going," "Champ," or "Your lemonade hustle is the real deal." Each time she got one of those messages, her face lit up. She'd show it proudly to everyone in the neighborhood, but life, as always, wasn't perfect. One cold morning, her father got some unexpected news. The small workshop where he worked had been shut down, and he was suddenly left without a job. He tried to hide his worry, but the girl could tell something was wrong. He smiled less, talked less, and spent more time looking at papers and bills. One evening, she walked into the kitchen holding her jar of saved lemonade money. She placed it on the table beside him and said softly, "You can use this, Dad. It's for us." He looked at her, surprised. "Sweetheart, that's your hard-earned money. You've been saving for a long time." "I know," she said, her eyes steady, "but you've always said we're a team. So if you're worried, I want to help too." Her words hit him harder than anything else could. He pulled her into his arms, trying not to let her see the tears forming in his eyes. "You're growing up too fast," he whispered. "But thank you. I promise things will get better." The next few weeks were a little tough. The lemonade stand still ran, but the weather was getting colder, and fewer people came by. The girl kept smiling anyway, still greeting everyone warmly. One afternoon, a car pulled up quietly near the stand. The door opened, and to her surprise, The Rock stepped out again, wearing a coat and a big grin. "Hey, superstar," he said as he walked up. "Still serving the best lemonade in town?" Her eyes widened. "You came back again?" she said, her voice full of excitement. "Of course," he said. "I had to make sure you didn't forget me." A few moments later, another car parked beside his. Out came John Cena, carrying a small cardboard box. "I brought something for you," he said. Inside the box were packets of instant hot chocolate mix. "Since it's getting cold, I thought you could try selling this too. A winter upgrade for the lemonade stand." The girl's father came out from the porch, surprised to see them. He shook their hands with a smile that he hadn't worn in weeks. You two have no idea how much this means, he said quietly. The Rock looked around and said, "Looks like the stand's still going strong." The girl laughed. "It's a little slow now because of the weather, but I don't give up easily." "That's the spirit," Cena said proudly. "You've got more heart than half the people I know." Then they noticed her father's expression, the tired eyes and quiet sighs he couldn't quite hide. The Rock asked gently, "Everything okay?" Her father hesitated but finally admitted, "Lost my job recently. Been trying to figure things out." There was a short silence. Cena crossed his arms, thinking, "You ever think about starting something of your own?" he asked. The father gave a small, unsure laugh. "I wouldn't even know where to start." The Rock leaned forward slightly. "You already did, with her. That stand? That's not just a kid's hobby anymore. That's a symbol of this whole neighborhood. People love it. You could turn it into something bigger. Maybe a small local drink stall, something family-run." Her father looked at the little stand, then at his daughter, who was looking up at him eagerly. "You really think so?" he asked. "Absolutely," Cena said. "Sometimes the best things start small." That night after they left, the father couldn't stop thinking about their words. The idea sounded crazy, but maybe it wasn't impossible. The next morning, he sat with his daughter and sketched out a plan on paper. "If we could sell lemonade and hot chocolate," he said, "maybe we could add cookies, snacks, things people can grab on their way to work." Her eyes sparkled. "We could call it Lemon and Smile," she said. He laughed. "That's actually pretty good." They started small, just as before. But this time, neighbors volunteered to help. The woman from across the street baked cookies. The biker offered to repaint the stall and add shelves. Even the kids helped decorate it with ribbons and little drawings. What once was a simple lemonade table slowly turned into a small outdoor cafe corner where people could sit, sip, and talk. One weekend, as they officially reopened, The Rock and Cena surprised them again, this time bringing a few local news reporters. Not for fame, but to help spread the word about the girls' new idea. "We thought it was time more people saw what you two built here," Cena said. The girl blushed shyly, holding her father's hand. "It's not just me. Everyone helped," she said. The Rock smiled proudly. "That's what makes it special." The news clip aired that night, showing a short piece about the little lemonade stand that inspired a community. It wasn't dramatic, just honest and heartfelt. People across the city started visiting, some even driving hours just to buy a cup of lemonade from the little girl who never gave up. Before long, they had enough money to rent a small corner shop on the main street. It wasn't fancy, but it was theirs. Her father spent late nights fixing the place up, painting the walls bright yellow to remind them of where it all began. The girl helped design the logo herself, a smiling lemon with sunglasses. When they finally opened, they invited everyone who had helped along the way. The biker was there, helping serve customers with a gentle smile. The Rock and Cena showed up too, carrying flowers and gifts. The crowd cheered as the girl cut the ribbon with a big grin. "First cups on the house," she announced, and everyone laughed. Inside, the small shop smelled of lemons, sugar, and fresh cookies. There were pictures on the wall, one of the original stand, one of the rebuilding day, and one of her in the hospital holding a stuffed bear. Above them, a small wooden board carried the words, "Kindness is stronger than fear." The Rock looked around and said, "This is more than a shop. It's a reminder of what can happen when people care." Cena nodded. "It's proof that even a bad day can lead to something good." The girl's father stood beside them, eyes filled with gratitude. "We couldn't have done any of this without your help," he said. The Rock shook his head. "You did this yourself. We just believed in you." The evening ended with laughter, music, and the sweet smell of success, not the kind measured by money, but by heart. Everyone left that night feeling lighter, inspired, and proud to have been part of something so genuine. When the crowd was gone and the lights dimmed, the girl stood at the window of their new shop, looking out at the street where it all began. Her father stood beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" he said softly. She smiled and nodded. "And it all started with lemonade," he chuckled. "Yeah, lemonade and a lot of love." Outside, the small sign that read "Lemon and Smile" glowed faintly under the streetlight. The world around them was quiet again, but this time it wasn't the silence of fear. It was the peace that comes when life finds its way back to happiness. Far away, in another city, The Rock and Cena sat together watching the same story play on a small TV screen. They smiled as they saw the little girl handing out cups of lemonade, her laughter as bright as the first day they met her. "Looks like she didn't just rebuild a stand," Cena said. "She built a dream." The Rock nodded slowly. "That's what real strength looks like." And as the screen faded to the image of the bright yellow shop, it was clear that what had started as an accident had turned into a story that would live on. A story of courage, kindness, and how a small act of goodness can change lives forever. Months passed, and the small yellow shop called Lemon and Smile became a place everyone in the town knew. It wasn't just a place to grab a drink. It had become a small world of warmth and connection. Every morning the smell of freshly squeezed lemons filled the street, and the cheerful laughter of the young girl echoed through the open door. People didn't just come for lemonade anymore. They came for the feeling that everything would be okay. Her father had finally found peace again. He was no longer the worried man sitting quietly over bills. He was confident, smiling, and proud. He loved watching his daughter take orders with the same energy she had when she was little, never losing her spark. "You've turned this into something beautiful," he would tell her often. But what truly made their little shop special was that everyone felt like part of it. The biker who had once caused the accident came every week to help clean the shop and fix small things. He had changed too. The guilt he once carried was replaced by a quiet sense of purpose. Whenever new customers came in, he'd tell them proudly, "This place started from one brave little girl and a whole lot of hope." People loved hearing the story. Some cried, some smiled, but all of them left with a little reminder that kindness could heal almost anything. One winter morning, when the town was covered in a light layer of snow, the girl and her father arrived at the shop to find a letter taped to the door. It was from The Rock and John Cena. Inside was a short note and an invitation. It said, "We've been watching your journey. We're hosting a charity event for kids who want to start their own small businesses. We'd love for you to come share your story." The girl's eyes widened. "They want us to speak?" she said, hardly believing it. Her father smiled proudly. "Looks like your lemonade stand is going places." They both laughed and without hesitation agreed to go. A few days later, they arrived at the large community center where the event was being held. The place was packed. Cameras, kids, families, and volunteers everywhere. When they walked in, The Rock saw them and immediately waved. "There's my favorite lemonade, boss," he said, walking over with that familiar smile. Cena followed, giving the girl a friendly fist bump. "I told everyone about you," The Rock said proudly. "You're our little entrepreneur of the year." The girl blushed and looked at her father, unsure what to say. "I'm just happy people liked my lemonade," she said softly. "People didn't just like your lemonade," Cena said. "They believed in what it stood for: courage, hard work, and heart. You taught them something real." As the event began, The Rock took the stage first. He talked about how sometimes the smallest moments, even painful ones, can turn into something powerful. He mentioned the lemonade stand story, how a little girl's determination turned a mistake into a message of hope. Then it was her turn. The girl walked up to the microphone nervously, looking at the huge crowd. Her father gave her a reassuring nod from the front row. She took a deep breath and began to speak. "Hi, everyone. I never thought I'd stand here one day and tell a story that started with something scary, but I guess life is funny that way. I used to sell lemonade because it made people smile. Then one day something bad happened. I got hurt. But instead of ending my story, it started a new one." The room grew silent. Even the cameras stopped clicking for a moment. She continued, "The people who helped me, they didn't just fix what was broken. They showed me that kindness can change everything. My dad and I built our shop from that moment, and now we get to share it with everyone. So if something bad happens to you, don't stop. Maybe it's just life trying to show you another way to shine." The audience stood and clapped. Some people wiped tears. The Rock and Cena clapped the loudest. Her father had tears in his eyes too, but they were tears of pride. After the event, reporters and local journalists surrounded them, asking for pictures and interviews. But through it all, the girl stayed humble. When one reporter asked her, "What do you want to do next?" she smiled and said, "I just want to keep making people happy." That one sentence made the headlines the next morning. Soon after, Lemon and Smile became more than just a shop. Schools started inviting her to talk to students. Families from nearby towns came to meet her, to tell her how her story inspired their kids to never give up. Her father would often watch her with a proud smile as she told their story again and again, never losing that sparkle in her voice. Then one evening, as they were closing the shop, the biker walked in. He looked thoughtful, holding something behind his back. "Got something for you," he said, smiling shyly. He handed her a small framed photo. It was of the lemonade stand from the first day she opened it after her accident. Under the photo, he had written, "Thank you for giving me a second chance." The girl looked at it quietly for a moment, then smiled. "You already earned that yourself," she said. That night, her father hung the photo on the wall right next to their slogan. It became one of the most meaningful things in the shop. Months passed again, and business kept growing. They started shipping bottled lemonade to nearby towns. Customers posted pictures online, tagging their little store, and soon Lemon and Smile became a small but loved local brand. They even hired a few people to help, including some teens who needed part-time work. Her father said, "We're not just selling drinks anymore. We're giving people chances." But even with all the success, the girl never forgot the people who helped her. Every year, on the same day of her accident, she'd organize a small charity day. She'd give out free lemonade, cookies, and even hot chocolate, just to remind everyone that life can change in beautiful ways. The first year she did it, The Rock sent a short video message saying, "Proud of you, champ. Keep showing the world what kindness looks like." Cena sent a donation to help her buy supplies for the event. It became a yearly tradition, one that brought the whole community together. One evening, after a long day, she and her father sat outside the shop watching the sunset. The golden light hit the bright yellow sign, making it glow warmly. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" her father asked. She nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. "Sometimes it feels like a dream," she said. "But I think it's real because we made it together." He smiled. "You're right. It's real. And it started because you never gave up." She looked out at the street where kids were laughing and chasing each other, the same corner where her lemonade stand once stood. "I think the best part," she said softly, "is that it helped people believe again. Not just in lemonade, but in good things." Her father looked at her, a little amazed. "You know, you sound wiser than most adults." She laughed. "That's what lemonade does, Dad. It makes you think sweet." They both laughed, the sound echoing down the quiet street. As night fell, the lights of the shop flickered on. The small bell over the door jingled as the last customer of the day walked out, waving goodbye. The town grew quiet again, but inside the little yellow shop the warmth lingered. It wasn't just a business anymore. It was a story that lived in every cup poured, every smile shared, and every heart that walked through its door. Far away, in a different city, The Rock and Cena were watching a small TV segment about Lemon and Smile. The screen showed the girl and her father, busy serving customers. The Rock leaned back and said, "You know, I think that little stand might have changed more lives than any big show we've done." Cena nodded. "Yeah, sometimes real heroes don't wear capes or championship belts. Sometimes they just sell lemonade." They both laughed, clinking their cups of coffee together. Back in the little town, as the stars began to fill the sky, the girl turned off the lights and looked once more at the sign outside. It glowed softly in the night, the same yellow that started it all. She whispered quietly, almost to herself, "Thank you for everything." And maybe the world didn't hear her, but in that moment it felt like it did, because sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest stories. The next morning, as the sun rose again, people lined up outside Lemon and Smile for their morning drinks. The town buzzed with life, laughter, and the smell of lemons. And just like that, the story of the girl who never gave up continued, not with an ending, but with a new beginning every single day. Weeks turned into months, and the warm summer faded into early autumn. The lemonade stand, once a small table by the corner, had now become a small landmark in the neighborhood. People who had never even met the girl before now came just to see her smile, buy a cup of lemonade, and maybe hear the story that had touched so many hearts. Her leg had healed completely by now. She could walk and even run again, though her father still told her to be careful. But she wasn't scared anymore. Every time she saw her yellow stand, she was reminded that even when something bad happens, kindness can turn it into something good. The Rock and John Cena had gone back to their work, traveling from city to city for events and projects, but they never forgot about her. They kept in touch quietly through her father, sometimes sending short videos saying things like, "Keep going, champ," or "Your lemonade hustle is the real deal." Each time she got one of those messages, her face lit up. She'd show it proudly to everyone in the neighborhood. But life, as always, wasn't perfect. One cold morning, her father got some unexpected news. The small workshop where he worked had been shut down, and he was suddenly left without a job. He tried to hide his worry, but the girl could tell something was wrong. He smiled less, talked less, and spent more time looking at papers and bills. One evening, she walked into the kitchen holding her jar of saved lemonade money. She placed it on the table beside him and said softly, "You can use this, Dad, it's for us." He looked at her surprised. "Sweetheart, that's your hard-earned money. You've been saving for a long time." "I know," she said, her eyes steady, "but you've always said we're a team. So if you're worried, I want to help too." Her words hit him harder than anything else could. He pulled her into his arms, trying not to let her see the tears forming in his eyes. "You're growing up too fast," he whispered. "But thank you. I promise things will get better." The next few weeks were a little tough. The lemonade stand still ran, but the weather was getting colder, and fewer people came by. The girl kept smiling anyway, still greeting everyone warmly. One afternoon, a car pulled up quietly near the stand. The door opened, and to her surprise, The Rock stepped out again, wearing a coat and a big grin. "Hey, superstar," he said as he walked up.
Still serving the best lemonade in town?
Her eyes widened. "You came back again?" she said, her voice full of excitement. "Of course," he said. "I had to make sure you didn't forget me." A few moments later, another car parked beside his. Out came John Cena, carrying a small cardboard box. "I brought something for you," he said. Inside the box were packets of instant hot chocolate mix. "Since it's getting cold, I thought you could try selling this too." A winter upgrade for the lemonade stand. The girl's father came out from the porch, surprised to see them. He shook their hands with a smile that he hadn't worn in weeks. "You two have no idea how much this means," he said quietly. The Rock looked around and said, "Looks like the stand's still going strong." The girl laughed. "It's a little slow now because of the weather. But I don't give up easily." "That's the spirit," Cena said proudly. "You've got more heart than half the people I know." Then they noticed her father's expression, the tired eyes and quiet sighs he couldn't quite hide. The Rock asked gently, "Everything okay?" Her father hesitated but finally admitted, "Lost my job recently. Been trying to figure things out." There was a short silence. Cena crossed his arms, thinking, "You ever think about starting something of your own?" he asked. The father gave a small, unsure laugh. "I wouldn't even know where to start." The Rock leaned forward slightly. "You already did, and with her. That stand? That's not just a kid's hobby anymore. That's a symbol of this whole neighborhood. People love it. You could turn it into something bigger. Maybe a small local drink stall, something family-run." Her father looked at the little stand, then at his daughter, who was looking up at him eagerly. "You really think so?" he asked. "Absolutely," Cena said. "Sometimes the best things start small." That night after they left, the father couldn't stop thinking about their words. The idea sounded crazy, but maybe it wasn't impossible. The next morning, he sat with his daughter and sketched out a plan on paper. "If we could sell lemonade and hot chocolate," he said, "maybe we could add cookies, snacks, things people can grab on their way to work." Her eyes sparkled. "We could call it Lemon and Smile," she said. He laughed. "That's actually pretty good." They started small, just as before. But this time, neighbors volunteered to help. The woman from across the street baked cookies. The biker offered to repaint the stall and add shelves. Even the kids helped decorate it with ribbons and little drawings. What once was a simple lemonade table slowly turned into a small outdoor cafe corner where people could sit, sip, and talk. One weekend, as they officially reopened,